What's going on, all? This is Anon. None of this is financial advice. This is all just for entertainment purposes only. Just talking about Aterian stock and figuring out what's going on. So, obviously, we had an interesting day, and I'll kind of talk about it more once we get some people in here. But we'll see if we can get all this stuff out. What's up, Jerry? What's up, CC? Oh, I think Jerry won today. At least on my screen, that's what I see. Jerry got first by one. No, it was like at the same time. Well, your timestamps are actually the exact same, so I'll give you guys both the the win on that one. I got 10. It was a 10:53:35 for both of you guys. So, what's going on? Yes. What's up, Hothead Candles? What's up, Jason? How goes the battle? Oh, it's well, Finished green. Yeah, it started out rough, but you can see we finished up 2 pennies. That's why the title was just my 2 cents. All right, so let's go ahead and get this on the Discord, and then we can start kind of covering things. Let me load the Discord first. At least you guys can hear me, right? At least I had the microphone on this time. Yesterday I started out with the microphone not on. All right. Push out a notification to everyone. Let them know we are in here. All right. We'll send it to everybody so they know. Right, and that's right, we're supposed to do Twitter too, right? Cover our bases. Make sure we... Okay, should be up now. All right, let's just go back and take a look. Yeah, so reverse repos, that's an interesting thing. It's basically like they're parking like cash, which normally you don't want to do, but it's one of those things to hold collateral. They typically have these reverse repo markets, and the reason why they've been growing so much is because I think some of these... Excuse me. I am going to have to grow a scotch early tonight. Sorry about this. But I think it has to do with right now, companies need to have liquidity and cash because of a lot of their positions. And it's been talked about in the GME community for quite a while because I think most of the people in GME know kind of like the basics of how everything works, or at least they're being informed of. The wrinkle brains have been kind of informing the rest of the people in there. And what it boils down to is they know that some of these shorts never close their positions, which means that they have to have a certain amount of collateral on their books at all times. So the reverse repo market's a good way to store some of that. Even like you would think you would want to have that in the market, but at the same time, if it took a downturn, it wouldn't be as safe. So there's I would say there's something going on with that, and I think there's a reason why that's been flagged by the GameStop community, the Superstock community, and all the sub wrinkles that have came off of there. Something's going on with this market, and it's not. I'm just reading somebody, but it's like, let's talk about this. We can bring up this in a second. So we've talked about Aterian's, unusual OBV and money flow. We've also compared it to GameStop. Same thing. They go up together, right? But they never come down, whereas all these other things have come down. You can take a look at. I need to make this probably a little bit better, but let's take a look at all the meme stocks, right? AMC, same deal. A couple more sags in here, not as strong as GameStop or Aterian, but still very, very high up there. Then you've also got costs. Same thing. Look at this. Goes up in waves, stays up, stays elevated, right? You've also got BBBY, which is Bed Bath & Beyond. Same thing. See, this one started more like a normal one, right? It used to be like a normal stock. Then made that run up, right? Then it's been going up in these basically like legs. Because it's kind of like in between a meme stock and a real stock. But look, it's ended up here at the very top. And even though the price has been sinking, you're looking at, like it went on a run from like 3 to like 53. And let's look at when it made that run, right? When did it make this run? Oh, wait. Look at the date. That was a day before. This was GameStop's day, but this was the day before GameStop's day. So the GameStop thing got shut down on the 28th. They ran the biggest amount, but they had huge swings here, and here. So I'm just saying that's another one that's definitely on that list. Nokia, I think, was another one that had a run during that time frame, right? That's one random spike right here, right? Let's look at the date. Look at that, the 27th. Once again, GameStop got its buy button shut down on the 8th. But look at all this stuff. That's a very unusual pattern that's emerging on all these ones, right? There was another one, wasn't there? BlackBerry, right? Sorry, so we 2Bs. BlackBerry. Let's guess what this date is. Oh wait, look, the 27th. See, all these are the same. You guys have to remember. You want me to look up Mavis or whatever it is? MV. Look, does that coincide? No, not quite the same, but they did have a mini run. I would argue this is actually just Wyckoff distribution, to be honest with you guys. All right, so look, you have accumulation happening in here. You get up here, you have some, basically, this is distribution up here. Now, granted, you look at the OBV and all this stuff, yes, it's still remaining high. And so what I've found is anything that has a large amount of retail interest, these charts always look the same. The pattern, though, doesn't fit exactly with the GameStops and other ones, but because it's a retail favorite, look at this. This one run right here has trapped a bunch of people, and they just never got out, or at least in large quantities. So, going back over. All right, so yeah, there's gonna be dips, and that's the whole point of this all is what's up Hustle, what's up Conky Dong, what's up Drake, not financial advice, but if you had $200K cash, what would you dump it in mostly SPY and a chunk in Aterian at prices now. I'll be honest with you, if I was just, this is not financial advice, but like if I was sitting there with 200K cash, what I would be doing is I would be taking a look at probably a mixture of a couple things. And we'll get back to Aterian, but I'm just going to throw this out there. So for me, if I was looking at the SPY, right now, the SPY is going to be, excuse me, I better drink the scotch so I can get my throat under control. All right, this is my target right here, right now. This area right here. And why do I say that? Look where we are right now, all right? It looks right now to me like the MACD is about to cross over, right? So everyone's like, okay, we're going to go on this little bull run. We'll push up to like maybe 400 for something. And then my guess would be we take another leg down, and it will be hard and fast. Stairs up, elevator down. I mean, look at, this was the pandemic crash, right? It happens hard and fast usually. Like we are kind of more like at a gradual decline at this point, but it wouldn't shock me to see a nice like just complete fall. And then if you look at like these left a couple gaps if I remember correctly, so that would be like the first place would be in the 350s. And eventually though, you got to deal with where was it? Was this the November, the election gaps? They gapped up like 7 straight days in a row. So they left gaps all up in here from the election cycle on the daily. So that's kind of what I'd be looking at. So if I was going to play that, knowing that eventually it's going to get down to these levels again at some, these levels right here, right? Is that 20? No, that's a pandemic low, right? So, sorry, I lost where I was on the chart. I'd be targeting this area right here from the November election cycle. So if we zoom out all the way, that's here. So I think there's another like 40 to 50 points downside. So I would not be dumping in SPY at this point. If you were going to want to go long on the SPY, I would wait till you at least hit some of these, this area right here, and then I would go long, or you could play the inverse. So like there's a couple ways of playing an inverse of the SPY. You can buy puts on the SPY, long dated puts. You can buy inverse funds like SPXU, which is I think it's 3x leverage. Someone correct me if I'm wrong, but you could play something like that. So like this was the pandemic crash, right? So they went from like 80 to a high of 218 in a short amount of time. You could see potentially, a nice little run. I'm not saying it's ever going to get that high, but you could see a nice, bump, and you can make good money on that, knowing that eventually those gaps are probably going to fill on the SPY. If you really thought the world was going to like take a huge hit, you could play volatility, UVXY. I really don't recommend this one for like your casual player because it decays really fast. So you better know when it's going to crash. Like World War III breaks out, this is what will spike. I mean, it went from a low of like 100 and something to like basically 10x. That's pretty crazy in a matter of like 2 weeks or something like that. So, but once again, that was a pandemic and the world shut down for a little bit. So, but a huge event like that could be played volatility, like something like that. You could look at shorting through the FAS if you think the financial sector was going to be in a huge problem. This is one that also spikes very hard because of its leverage. So, but these ones are all very like short-term plays. Like you don't want to be holding them long term. You don't buy like shares of them and just hold them forever because they have theta decay that's in every single week. So, but yeah, I mean, if you were looking at Aterian, I would be looking at support levels. So clearly at this point we tried 3 today. It did dip down. Didn't get as low as I wanted. I actually had orders in at 292. Did we hit 292 today? 293. See, my order didn't hit. I had an order in at 292, and it hit 293 and immediately bounced off. So I still am trying to get my fills at 292. If it runs down tomorrow, I'll do the same exact thing. I'll have orders there at 292 because that's a good level of support. If it breaks through that, then I would be very ecstatic to be buying shares even lower than 292. I know people don't like to hear it that way, but the way I'm looking at it is as many shares as I can get of this company, I'm trying to get my hands on. Because, I think when it moves, it's going to move violently. All right. So, yeah. So, Redbox. So people wanted to know about Redbox too. We'll just cover that real quick. Redbox's Ortex numbers are very, very strange. You should technically, off the new system, you're not supposed to be able to have more than 100% like short interest. Yeah, it's reporting that. So I need to kind of look into that a little bit more, to be honest with you guys, because from what I understood, at least when they made the rule changes, and maybe I need to go up and brush up again, you weren't supposed to be able to have something that goes over 100% just because of the new math on how they calculate short interest. So that's a little bit confusing because it's obviously that's what they're reporting. Can you explain why the cost of borrow is decreasing on Aterian? Sure. They added more shares right now. So I think if we cover this, it might explain to you guys better what's going on. And I think once you kind of, it's not as scary once you kind of understand the bigger picture. I don't think this would be, I shouldn't get, so I realized when I shared like Fintel the other day, my video got shut down, so apparently I can't post like Fintel directly, and it like YouTube removed it. So I think I'm fine showing my own sheet. So let's go over this real quick, and hopefully you guys can kind of understand what I'm seeing and doing. All right, so right now this is roughly what I have for our total shares outstanding. Other places are reporting 63 million. I'm trying to be on the really conservative side with this, so I'm trying not to like pad any numbers. I'm trying to make it look as bad as possible for the stock. All right, so off of Fintel's insider ownership, they are reporting 13 million. I think I had moved that to 12, but I'm just going to go off the Fintel numbers at this point until they update them. Excuse me. So what you do is you take this number right here and you subtract out the insider ownership. That leaves you with your float. So this is what's out there for the rest of the world, right? And then the free float is what you do when you take institutional ownership. And now here's the thing that we're having an issue with. And the reason why I haven't released this all on a DD is because I haven't gotten confirmation yet. I've actually contacted investor relations at Aterian, and they were still calculating it up. But I asked him, I said, listen, off the Fintel numbers that they reported all their 13Fs, I hit the sum function on them, and I added them up, and I'm getting 25 million, 25.83 million, right here. Now, Fintel, though, is reporting 19 million. And I'm trying to figure out where they got their number, because when I add up their 13Fs together, it's producing this number right here. So that makes it a little bit confusing, because they're giving me the numbers that they're using, but they're reporting a different number off of that. So I contacted Aterian's investor relations and asked if I could confirm with them. And what I understood was he wrote me back and said, your numbers look right, meaning this number. And I'm like, okay, if that's true, then that means that the free float actually would be 25.28 million, which means that if you took like the 12 million that Ortex is reporting and you actually did the math on it, that would give you almost 50% short interest on the stock. Now, these are the numbers that Ortex is using. They're reporting right now a free float of 28 million, and Fintel's reporting a free float of 30 million. Now, I added up those things, and I got this, which means that retail owns about 50%, and so do institutions of the remaining shares of the float, which is here. So, and I back-checked it by adding up all these things. So you add these three together, and that gives you back this number right here. So I also, people were asking me about the warrants, so what I did was I created this thing that will basically show you what this looks like after the September warrants. So these right now are with the warrants added in. We have 64. You add 7.1 million from the warrants. That will give you the 71 million right there. And then from there, you subtract your insiders, assuming they don't change in the future. They may go higher. Who knows? And then what you do is you take your institutional ownership, which is here. You subtract it out and you subtract this from this number that gives you the future float, and then from here, at that point, the warrants are gone, and all you have left. The warrants aren't all gone. There's ones at 15 and 25, but the ones at 3 are all gone, and they're added back into this institutional ownership. That 7 million gets added to this number right here. That leaves the float 25 million. It's basically the same. The shares are just now in the float and accounted for. So it's really not that scary. And at that point, you have a long that's been, their cost average is like $3. So you would think that a company that owns 10% of a stock would, at $3 a share, would probably want the stock to rise up in value so they can make money. So, everyone freaks out like, oh, the warrants are in September. I'm like, yeah. And then you have somebody that owns 10% of the company that has an incentive to make this go higher, because you got to think about it like this. It's possible that they're short and they were, making sure, and I don't think they are, but you have to consider a possibility that they have shorted the stock at least a little bit because they have obviously leverage. But here's the thing. Because they bought in so low, if they can't get it to go to zero, if they say, oh, you know what, this is just, the retail's never going to leave this stock alone, they can just go long at $3 a share with owning 10% of the entire company, and they can pump it if they want to, because they're smart money. And so just throwing that out there. So just because the September warrants hit does not mean it's actually over. You can see very much here, you still have a very small free float, because most of the shares are now it would be like 60-40 for the breakdown of institutional ownerships versus, the public's. And, do you think we own 25 million shares as retail? I think we do. So I did include these Ortex numbers. This is where they are right now. This is what we estimate if this number is correct. I did write investor relations to get clarification. Like, did you mean like the 19 million that was next to the number that I sent you, or the 25 million? Just, I want to make sure I'm crystal clear with them. So, and we can do this fun little thing where if you figure it out, how many shares it would take to lock up the float and the cost. We could do that later, but I just wanted to show you guys because you guys wanted to know about like the ownership and all that stuff. But here's the thing, right? You wanted to know about cost to borrow, Matt. So we went from 52 or 53 million shares outstanding, right, previously, to now sitting here at like 64 million. And how did that happen, right? How did all of a sudden these shares come out of nowhere? Well, they didn't come out of nowhere. They came out of the private placement, which a lot of you guys know. That's where Armistice, I think it's Armistice. I can't say their name right ever. Armistice? These guys. Armistice. Hermeses Capital. Phonetically break it down for me, somebody. But they added 5 million shares. And they actually, I think, are continuing to add them onto the float, which is why the number slightly changes. And that's why sometimes the free float changes at times. Because what you're seeing is they basically were given, I think, 6 million shares, I think, at one point. And they have also pre-funded warrants. I don't know if the commons and the pre-funded might be together. And then they also have the 7 million in, or maybe not the full 7 million, because there's 2 names listed on that, the warrants. It's them and High Trail. But those 2 have the remaining warrants. And they want to maintain, probably, my guess would be 99.99% ownership of the company. Because once you file over 10%, then you have like board obligations. You can't sell shares as easily because, you have inside information oftentimes, or you're just like, because you're owning a certain amount of the company, you have to report every move, and then the SEC kind of scrutinizes what you do. So that's why so many times you'll notice that like these institutions will buy 99 or 9.99% of the company. It's a magic number. And that was the thing that they did with Mullen. All right. Do I have COVID? Yeah, who knows? I'm feeling like crap all day. If I do get COVID and die, I want you guys to keep on teaching each other inside the Discord. Somebody petition my wife for the rights of the Discord. I'll hand it over to the mods, and you guys can split it up. Okay. Oh, so I didn't really finish. I'm sorry, I bounced around too much. So what you were talking about, what does this mean? Can you show an example of blue chop that doesn't show this pattern? Sure. So going back to here, right? We talked about anything that has this kind of run up, right? So this is all looking like an interesting pattern, right? You have these, slow movement. OBV and money flow typically run together. There are times that they diverge slightly, but for the most part, let's go back and kind of just to go through the memes again. What are we on? We're on the 1 minute. That's why. Let's go to the daily. All right. So like here, right? We run up, we stay up, and then we've ran up now in this last run, and we were sitting here pinned at the top near like 99, 90, but in the 90s basically. Let's look at GME again. Same thing. They run up, 2 separate things, and then they're sitting up here in the 90s also. AMC, same thing. They're sitting up here, and maybe they're in the 80s, but costs, same thing. Low 90s. BBBY, same thing. They go up here. Now, remember I told you these guys are like a little bit of a hybrid in between. Same with Nokia. Because they actually have like pretty big ownership. But you see, that one spike. EDL goes through the roof. You have this massive amount of buying on both OBV and money flowing in, and then immediately back down, right? Then there's so like Nokia is not my favorite example because they have such a large float. Like they have like 1 billion something shares. So the fact that they even had that happen is interesting. But here, you want to go to some normal stocks, right? So here's Ford. So look at this. So you've got Ford at this time, right? Gets pushed down. The money flow, and the OBV go down here to these lows, right? Now look slowly over time. Look at the white and the green. Right, they're starting to move up, right? So you see them moving up from all the way down here to all the way up here on this peak. It made a pretty big swing from here to here. And then look, right before they hit their almost like top here, their all-time or their most recent high, look at this. You have it pinned up here in the 90s. And then what happens when people start selling? The money flows out, right? Because this is a gradual state of money flowing into a stock. And right here is the peak and climax, and then you now have a like the money flows out, right? Money's flowing out of it. The OBV is going down. And look, that's how it would normally work. Let's go to, give me some other stocks. Let's go to, I don't know, Facebook, right? So look, Facebook. It's down here, right? The money is flowing in slowly, right? It's down here, hits that low. Then money starts coming in, right? During the pump. During this bull market, money's running into it, flowing in. Look at it. Now it's sitting up here at the top. Now here's the thing, right? They missed on that earnings right here, right? And what happens? When they miss on it, it gets slammed down and the money flows out of it. You're watching all this money flow out. Let's look at Amazon. Look, money's flowing into the stock, hits that peak, hits another peak, and now slowly the money is starting to flow out of the stock. Now it's back in the 70s. Even though we're getting a little like reversal here, it's still flowing out like it was in a downward trajectory. Now, could it come back up and cross over, do the MACD crossover and run again? Sure. But you would see the lines going up and down. Like when money flows out of it, it goes down. That's the way the indicator works. I don't know. Give me another regular, boring old, something that retail doesn't typically buy. It's like Coca-Cola, right? Or Kellogg's. Look at this. Money's flowing up and in. Money's flowing out. Money's flowing in. Money's flowing out. Money's flowing in, kind of consolidating, and then money's actually running up right now. That's Kellogg's. So, yeah, like here's back to Aterian. Money flows in even more, and just stays up here. And we're not going anywhere. So hopefully that, shows what I'm talking about, which is, it's highly unusual that all retail's favorites all look the same on this indicator. If you look at stocks that are mainly traded by institutions or a mix of institutions and regular traders, money flows in, money flows out like it should. But with meme stocks, they're all pinned up at the top and they never move. So it's not exactly tracking the price of the stock, because the price of the stock is actually being shown with ADL. And so if you actually look at all these meme stocks, if you zoom out again, the one thing that goes down over the course of time is the ADL, right? So you have like a couple spikes here. That's when there's accumulation, but then it gets distributed right back in, and then it's been the slow bleed off down here. That is, ADL is basically you are looking at the price of the stock and you're ignoring volume. So you just look solely at the price. So if you're looking down here, right, we had this little run up, look at this, and then they immediately pushed it back down, and they've been trying to bleed it out. Then we had this secondary run up here, right? We're just starting to see that. So this little thing right here, even though it looked pretty significant, when you zoom out on it, if I can, you can see there was a slight bump up from like here to here, basically. But like they're all looking like this. Like it doesn't. Yeah. Here's even BBB or BBIG, right? And they're having their little tide catalysts. But look, their indicators are very similar. Like they go up in these things. They had the same run as Aterian, basically. They all were going up around the same time. And then they kind of stuck. And so these are ones that I believe, my heart of hearts, that all of them are being manipulated because they're small caps. They all need money. Now, there are different situations. Like BBI or BBIG is much larger as far as the market cap and the their shares right now. Their shares outstanding are like 250 million or something like that. Versus Aterian's only got 64 million right now. So huge difference in the float sizes. But still, indicator shows the same exact thing. And it's not really, if you were thinking it follows the price, it doesn't. So look, if this is up here, right, and it stays up here, you would think the price would then stay up here. But that's not what happens. What happens is the price gets bled down, just like it does on Aterian, right? Price gets bled down, but yet the OBV stays high and the money flow stays high. Then we had the secondary run up here, and we're pinned up here. So you would think that if this followed only price, you would have these moving down with it. So if money really was flowing out of the stock in large amounts, and not just the price of the stock, it would actually be bringing this entire indicator down. That's what should be happening. What this shows is that money flowed into a stock and never left. And though the price may not reflect it, even when it's sitting down here in the twos, these are stocks that should have remained much higher than they did, but they're being manipulated. That's what it shows. So hopefully that kind of explains that out. Yeah, like what should happen is if the OBV and the money flow were following the price of the stock, what you would end up seeing is you would see downward movement pretty severely here. Like you should be following along with the price movement. Just like let's look at Amazon. Look at Amazon, right? When the price is moving up here, what's happening on the OBV? The price and the money flow are all moving up with the stock. From there to there, right? And then what happens up here? When the stock hits here or here, you see some downwards pressure, right? There's still a good amount, but you actually see it moving down. It went from the 90s, like you were up here at like 95 or something like that, and it has moved down to the 60s. And if we hit an even lower part, or if this tanks even lower, you'll see the money flowing out. But like, look, like from here, down here, when you're sitting here, all the way up to here, that goes from 5% all the way up to 77%. So that's like 70-point swing on that indicator. And going from like here at the top, or where it was up here when it was like 100%, right? 98%. Now we're sitting down here, it's 70%. So like, it's gone down since there. It may not be a huge move on the from the eyeball view, but like it's moving forward. Same thing. Look, when you were down here at these lows, money flow and OBV have gone down here. They're tanking. They're all sitting here in the very, very bottoms of this. And then look, when it made its run from $3.96 all the way up to $25.87 right here, you went from basically like 0 to 100. And now the money's flowing out, right? So the money's flowing out. You're back down here. That's how the indicator should work. That's not how it works on any of the meme stocks, which is why I think something's mounting and something's building. So, SPY feels like a huge bull trap. Yeah, I agree, RT. All right, so can you explain the extra $6 million institutional investment you identified today? It means that there's less shares available. So it means this float is smaller, which means that the short interest that you guys all look at on Ortex is smaller. Or sorry, it's bigger because the float's smaller. So they always do a percentage of free float as their indicator. So I think today I saw somebody posted it was like 39 point something 8%. Of the free float is shorted, right? So just call it 40 because it was like 39 point something. So 40% of the short on the Tyrions is supposedly shorted. If you have a smaller float, though, free float, then what ends up happening is that would mean that, I think I showed it on my chart. Like, where is it? When you pull this up, right, and you go back into here, that means that this is the number they're reporting, right? So basically 40%. But if you have 6 million more shares, then I think it's like 5. It's like 5 or 6 million more. Then what ends up happening is your free float then would be smaller, which means that the amount of short interest percent of free float would be almost 50%. Then it's 49%. So that's what the extra shares would indicate, and that's what I get confirmed with, from Aterian themselves. So I need to figure out. Hopefully, he'll write me back tonight or tomorrow morning, because I did write him at the end of the day. So I'm hoping he'll confirm for me it is either a 25 or close to that number, and that way we can contact Fintel and Ortex and let them know that their numbers are incorrect, and hopefully they will update them. So. Yeah, Jonathan, Robert, I don't do financial advice. I can't do like on the fly DD for HUT. They're what, like a Bitcoin like crypto miner, if I remember correctly. I didn't really look at. Is that right? Am I right on that? It's been a long time since I looked at that stock, but HUT stock. Hold on. Yeah, HUT 8 Mining Corp. Based out of Canada. Yeah, so I think I remember they're like a crypto miner. And I'll do you this one solid. I will quickly just see if there's any red flags off the bat. I think they should be fine, though, in cash flow. They're not super shorted. They're only like 8% shorted, and they're not really that bought up by institutions, though. They only have like 11% institutional ownership at this point. So mainly it's held by retail. Let's see who their largest. Yeah, Susquehanna has a small position, less than 1%. Invesco has another 1% position. Besides that, they don't have a ton of stuff. I haven't looked at their their filings, so I can't give you a full DD on them, but I don't see any glaring flags of like, warrants or dilution that's immediate. That would be like concerning. That must mean that they're fine on cash flow. So there you go. Should I average down or put money on the FAS? It's all of what you think. Like if you think the financial industry is at risk because they're over leveraged, which is what some people think, then that could be an interesting thing, but you have to kind of time it right with those inverse ones, because they do fade to decay pretty fast. So it's not something you want to sit there having to hold for like 3-4 months before it blows up. You kind of want to time it as soon as possible, and just kind of, as it's starting to run up, jump on that and just ride out and not hold too long. There'll be. I always tell people when I'm selling my positions, I typically go out in certain percentages. I don't do it all at once, because if you miss, you can miss big. All right. I'm a bit worried about my $5 calls. So right now, those $5 August calls, I have some too. They are getting IV crushed right now. And there's one of two things I was thinking about. They're either trying to scare retail out of those positions by IV crushing them and making them look like really bad, because right now, obviously, the IV's lowering. Or it's because they're trying to get the IV lower because they want to pump the stock later, and so they're going to load up their positions really cheap and then make a ton of money. So those are my two thoughts on that. But I don't think we're going to be having issues, because you do have second quarter earnings that should come out in August as well. So yeah, it may hit the 292 market, pre-market. It could be. But yeah, I don't have a ton of, let's see. Yeah, and Ortex makes mistakes, so don't get too caught up on Redbox, whoever was asking about that. But I'll have to deep dive a little bit more into that to see if there was any validity of, like, they shouldn't hypothetically be able to be that short or have that go over 100% in theory. So yeah, there are warrants up at the $11 mark, if I remember correctly, on Redbox. But there's also a pending acquisition, so you've got a whole bunch of stuff that can happen and hit. So just be careful on those. Excuse me, Craig. Thanks for all your hard work. Thanks, Craig. Thank you guys for hard work. I've been noticing a lot of people are writing DD now, and they weren't before. And I think it's a great thing. I think the more and more people have been around the community and kind of understanding how all this stuff works, they're starting to be able to feel confident branching out. And I'll do my best if people want me to look at things. But I think a lot of you guys are doing a really good job, especially the ones who've, like Fish, he's stepped up. I mean, I think there's been a punch. I think, Craig, you were talking about, you had posted some stuff. There's another guy. There's a couple other guys that have been writing DD, and I think it's really great. And I think we need more of that because, number one, it takes some heat off me because whenever anything goes wrong, everyone runs to me and goes, "See, I told you." I'm like, all right, thanks. So that, I guess that's the price you pay. But at the same time, when you're I was a genius for a second right here, and now I'm an idiot right now. But if it runs back up again, I'll be a genius. So we'll see. But there's something wrong with the stock. Like there's things going on here and across the entire market. When you look at these things that are popular with retail, they shouldn't all look the exact same, and they do. So, what do you think about the executive order thing? I think I've told you guys this before. I don't know that that's going to be a thing, at least the way I read it. And maybe I need to go back and reread it. But the way I read it, I didn't think it specifically said anything. I think the language, if it was clearer, I'd feel better about it. From what I understand, they're just going to, the executive order will be not renewed or something like that, and then at that point, nothing actually makes them in the language close their whatever they had as collateral. They just can't do any more of it, from what I understand. But once again, it's all legalese, and it's how you interpret things. So like somebody may interpret that and be like, yeah, they have to close out their things. Well, with the market, I found there's plenty of times where things seem like they need to be a certain way, and because they're not specifically spelled out, they don't go that way. So, bunch of news with China. Taiwan came out today. Biden threatened China. I don't think he specifically threatened. I heard the news clip on Bloomberg, and basically what I took from it was that but they even talked about removing tariffs on China, which actually would be, I think, helpful for Aterian. So not everything's bad news. But, yeah, anything that's going to destabilize that region, especially because so many goods come out of China, would be not a good thing for inflation or anything else. So I think both sides need to be careful what they're doing because they need us as much as – I remember I took an economics course, a macroeconomics course, and I remember they were kind of like, they were talking about like if you broke up all these different countries and areas, and you said, okay, if you had this is the analogy my professor used. He was like, if you had a desert island, right, and you had everyone, had their own skill or task, right? So like, if you were representing Africa, you would be like you're in charge of the minerals and the like they gave them a list of a whole bunch of different things, but you're in charge of like minerals and you're in charge of like jewelry for the island and all these other like things. And then they went to they're like Europe, you would be in charge of XYZ, but it went through and I was like listening, and then he's like United States. They're like, your job is to consume. And I was like, that's fascinating. Because I was like, well, can't everyone else consume? And they were like, no, but like the United States is such a big consumer for the rest of the world. Like everyone is trying to get a piece of that United States pie because, if you look at how much money is flowing through the United States, it's huge. It's a huge, huge amount. And so China needs the U.S. to consume. Like, sure, they can be selling their goods to the rest of the world, but the United States is a very lucrative thing for them. So there's a symbiotic relationship between the two. For the United States, we get cheap goods and, basically cheap labor that we couldn't afford in our own country. And on their side, they get someone to sell all their products to raise their GDP and all this stuff. So people we talk about it, and there's posturing on both sides, but both sides, I think, deep down know that they both need each other at this point. There are manufacturing jobs that are going to go elsewhere in the world, but for a long time, China and the U.S. have had it intermingled. Like, they may not even like each other, but at the same time, they both know that, they somehow rely on each other more than the people realize. So, Anna, do you have COVID? I don't know. I can take a test later on. Why is Redbox constantly squeezing every week and ATER isn't? Is Redbox an actual squeeze play? So Redbox right now in the beginning was just trying to get to their warrants. The reason why that was because they needed cash very badly. So if you actually realize this, Aterian right now has plenty of money. So there's nobody trying to like spike the price up to unlock warrants. Whereas for Redbox, that was the case. Redbox very much needed cash because they had a cash burn of about 15 million, and they only had, I think, 0.06% of the like cash left. So they immediately needed cash right off the bat, so they didn't basically default. And so this was a way for them to basically, they post something on social media about how high their short interest is, get a bunch of kids on Reddit to, go in and talk about the stock, and then you slap the ask the whole time. Like, you just, these guys know what they're doing, especially the underwriters. So the underwriters are legally allowed to like basically pump a stock. There's like some like weird like, clause that says that they're allowed to basically get the stock up to their warrant levels, like, legally pumping the stock to at least get themselves out of that so they can get their shares or their money. So just throwing it out there. So that's what essentially happened on Redbox. Was this initial spike was to like 11 to get them money. So yeah, this thing right here, when they ran up like this, notice how they get to 11, right? And then they immediately go down, right? And then we've had a couple other days where they've ran up. Now, these are probably on FTDs, to be honest with you. And they'll probably have one more run back up to 11 at some point. Maybe tomorrow, maybe next week. It could be 2 months from now. Who knows when it is. But what they're trying to do is unlock money up here. And so somebody's slapping the ask each day, trying to get this stock up. And they're probably dealing with FTDs and all that stuff as well. Are they on Reg Show? I don't know. I don't have Vortex on me right now. I actually canceled them because I felt like their information wasn't very good. But it wouldn't surprise me if they were on Reg Show already, and somebody's basically just trying to pump it up so they can unlock some warrants and unlock some cash. They also have a merger going on, if I remember correctly. So Armistice. Okay. Well, you guys are all putting it Armistice. Tom. Armistice. All right, you guys are making good phonetic sense there. Okay. I want to see the green bots again. Yeah, me too. All right, let's see. Fire sale all around. Yep. So what's OBV indicator? Is it just broken from algo trading? No, so it's, you notice it's across the board. Like every single retail popular stock all looks the same. They all go like this, and then they stay up here, and then they never come down. I don't think the OBV is broken. I think all it is, but here's the thing. Money flow then would have to be broken as well. So you have you're telling me that two indicators that represent long-term trends are doing the same exact thing, even though the price is very much going from like 11 down to 2, but yet the money never flows out. Like it doesn't make sense. Like this one at least moved when it went down, but it should have kept going down, but now it's going back up, right? Now, the real test for this would be if the stock goes up to 11 again and then tanks all the way down to like 1 again, right? And if it does come down, then I would say, okay, it's acting normally. But my guess would be if it ran from 11 all the way down to 1 and it's just chilling at 1 and it's still sitting up here at 100, that's not a good thing. That means that something else is going on with the stock is being manipulated. So. Yeah, the OBV does not reflect price. It represents volume/price, but money flow is supposed to be money going in and out of the stock. So, all right. So I'm obviously very far behind in the chat, so let me catch up a little bit. All right. Is it possible this may or may not perfectly articulate if sells are going through dark pools? More likely that buys are going through dark pools. So the buying never hits the market. So, and then it also could show that like they're basically manipulating the stock through both sides. But yeah, like and dark pools is like a broad term. Most people what they mean to say, but when they say dark pools is it should be called off exchange. So most of the stuff goes off exchange. Dark pools are a very specific thing, usually for bigger clientele, but they're kind of like abusing the system by pushing all these trades off exchange and making them wash out. So they basically control where the money goes and when it hits. And there's, obviously equity swaps, and there's all sorts of like tools that they have to kind of like cover up all this stuff. But at the end of the day, I don't think they do this forever, because if you imagine this, imagine us going to Aterian, right? So we have 25 million free float, right? So say we're sitting here right now and every retail trader decided that they were going to buy, I don't know, the stock's sitting here at 3, right? So what would be like $2,500, right? Let's see. And divided by 3. So let's say everyone decided to go out and buy 833 shares. Right? So let's go over here. So if we have 833, every single person in retail decided to buy another 833 shares. And let's say there was, I don't know, let's say there's 30,000 retail investors across the entire world that are buying Aterian. So that right there locked up the entire free float. Again, and that's assuming nobody else has, shares right now. I just like that's how like easy this is. Like, you know why we are sitting here at 100% utilization for 72 straight days, and why this is when we hit 100% utilization here, and then this run right here. This is why when we had this first day of volume that we hit reg show by here. Like, it was already locked up. Once they had this day, they had a whole bunch of FTDs piling up. And they've been able to reset them because they've had some shares that hit the market and hit like the actual, But at the same time, what you're learning, though, is if we just have more time to consolidate down here and retail continues to buy, you're just going to have another situation like this where one day you might have a larger than volume, and then 5 days later you're going to be on reg show again, because they got basically a temporary reprieve in this area, and then retail lost a little steam. But guess what? It doesn't change how this works. Like, this all is going to be the exact same thing, which is as soon as there's any volume that touches Aterian, like, it could be on news, it could be on somebody writes a good DD and it kind of proves everything that's right. Whatever the catalyst is, at some point when retail kind of comes in these things and it goes, just the slightest bit of volume on Aterian sends it flying. It just needs to be sustained. That's the only difference. Like, you see, as soon as you get to this peak right here, the volume starts dying down a little bit, and this is when they start getting control again. Right here. This whole range right here is when they start getting control again. And then once we lose a little bit of volume, boom. This is now, we went into that, that week because the markets were crashing around this time, right? The markets were crashing, and then we had that big day. Was it this day was the crash? Like the huge crash. And we actually held that somewhat decently for that day, but it didn't matter because we had no volume. because everybody was so worried about other things. This was because somebody paid attention to Tyrion and let it run up right here. So we get volume again, it will fly. And it will go on reg show again, like instantaneously. So just throwing it out there. And will you please leave the stream public when you end it? Yeah, I don't want to leave it open, right? But I was going to say, I'll make sure it's available. I don't think I've done anything to violate any terms of service. But that day that I brought over the Fintel data directly onto the screen, I think they flagged that and they removed the video, so I couldn't go back to it. So, buy shares, not options, says Keith. Not financial advice, but yeah, like if you're going to buy options, this is the way I was telling people, and I know everyone's kind of like everyone's got their own opinion. This is mine. If you're going to buy options, you need to buy at least 3 to 6 months data at a minimum on pretty much everything. If you're going to play short-term options, in my opinion, I like them deep in the money, like really deep in the money, because you saw they burned out so many people's options that were near the money or even slightly in the money by the time it was Friday. I don't trust something unless it's far enough back where I'm comfortable exercising those things for shares if things go sideways. And things went sideways on Friday. And because I had bought $1, $1.50, and $2 calls, they all turned into shares. And I picked up another, I think it was like 15,000 shares, something like that way. I'm happy with that, that I got my shares. Sure, I paid some in the premium, but at the same time, when it runs, I'm not going to worry about it too much. But if you bought a $4 or $5 call for last, Friday, that week, that was too far out of the money. And because of that, you don't have any money left now. Like, you didn't actually get to keep the shares. You just threw away money, basically. So that's why I say if there's no theta, you have to be deep in the money. That's just my personal way of investing. And that's not for everyone, and people can think I'm an idiot for that. But to me, that seemed a lot safer than to buy out of the money. There was already a ton of out-of-the-money calls. They didn't need more. But obviously, some people disagree with me on that, and that's fine. They can. I'm not telling anyone how to invest their money. I'm just telling you my personal investing preferences. If there's no theta, I'm deep in the money. I might have a couple like near the money calls just for like, those are my YOLOs. If we're sitting there at $3, a $3 might be a YOLO for me, or $3.50 might be a YOLO for me. Like at most, maybe a $4.50 would be like my YOLO. I don't typically buy $10 calls when we're sitting there at $3. It just, that's not smart, and it's not safe. So, yeah. So right now the IV's down, which is why the options right now are down and they look bad, but eventually they will be fine. All right. So I don't know anything that's imminent right now. Okay, so if Redbox underwriters pumped it, why are Tyrion's underwriters for 15 and 25 warrants, why aren't they helping us as fish? So basically, you have to remember who owns these things. Number one, the underwriters for those. The stock's a lot farther away. When we're sitting here at 3, 15 and 25 are a lot farther away than sitting there at like 3 and 11 is, like the 15 one's close, but there's not enough there to be like worthwhile. There's only like 290,000 contracts there. Like, that's not that much. That's not worth the amount of money you would spend having to pump it to that level would be, because Redbox had no volume, so they were able to just slap the ask and not have to worry about it. Like, tons of competition, right? They were just basically fighting probably a couple of shorts that were, but nobody really cared that much. With the Tyrion, there's a lot more interest, I think, and you're also looking at the pump from 3 all the way to 15 would cost you a lot of money. So That may not, and it's only 290 to 320,000 contracts. Like it's a tiny amount. The ones at 25 would be better, but those ones were actually from a merger warrant, and I don't think they have any interest at this point getting up to those because the sheer amount of money you'd have to spend on it. So that's why. Yeah, so Reg Show is going to go on and off for Aterian right now because they had more shares that hit the market. So what you'll see is during this consolidation period, you may see it go back onto Reg Show if we get any sort of volume. Like if we get a day like, not even this much. If we got even like a quarter of that, we probably would be on Reg Show within 5 days, as long as retail is accumulating down here at these levels. So. All right, so. You kept pointing out the locked up free float, but it doesn't seem to help the share price. Yeah, so remember this, you kind of have to be, this is not what everyone wants to hear, but you don't typically get these things very fast. Like GameStop took a long time to get to the point where it exploded. And you need some catalysts and you need a little bit of luck because you're going against essentially smart money. So I just wanted to show you this. GameStop hit an all-time low of like 257 here, right? From this point until here, though, this is how long it took them to actually get a squeeze out of this thing. If I remember correctly, Ryan Cohen joined the board. Anyone know offhand when Ryan Cohen joined the board of GameStop? Anyone? Let me know if you know. Type in Ryan Cohen joins GameStop board. That was in... He increased his position, I believe, in like... He did it twice, but looks like November maybe. Yeah, so November of 2020, which is right around here. So this is when basically the GameStop squeeze starts happening, right? And look, nothing happened for a long time, right? Like literally nothing happened. Like you had these slight movements up. Like, ran to like at one point, I think that was like a high of 17. Then got pushed back down to like in the like single digits, pushed back up. So you're looking at like a long drawn out period before it actually squeezed. And they had COVID and a bunch of other things going on all at the same time. So just want to point out though, these things don't come fast. Like if you want an actual squeeze, like a good solid, like, oh my God, look how fast and hard this is running. That doesn't come out of nowhere. That comes out of people and catalysts changing the game. So let's go back to Aterian. So what do we have, right? You had a stock that went from 142 all the way up to 48, right? But it did that on no volume. So to me, this doesn't even count because retail wasn't part of this, right? This was just under like a small cap stock. People were pumping it up, and it wasn't even like a ton of people. It was like a couple individuals were running this up, it looks like, and then it bled off here, and then this is when the shipping happened right here. And that's where you have a massive sell-off. They're shorting. This is all just shorting. They really hit their climax here for shorting. They gapped down the day before, and they just like tanked the stock. Earnings actually beat here. It doesn't look like it beat, but this earnings actually like completely beat. And look, even though it beat, it went all the way down to 304, which was their most recent low until this year. And then they ran up, right? Because And then retail didn't really start FOMOing in until right here. And you can see all these indicators went together. Before that, they were all going nowhere. They're all sitting down here together. And then look what happens. They all rump together. Now what happens here? They push down the price, but money's still flowing in for the second pump up. This is when retail FOMO'd in. That's where retail FOMO'd in right here. And what they do? They bled out the stock the rest of the time, right? They had a little running earn, and then this was earnings. Earnings beat this one too. But guess what? What they have to do? They had to short it down again. And then they've had no volume. Look at the volume. Volume died off completely. So what do we have now, right? We're sitting here now. At any point, though, this happened, this run right here happened on nothing. There was no event. There was no catalyst. It was just me writing some DD, and then it ran. I don't know why that happened, but this particular weekend, I wrote some DD comparing some of the short squeeze stocks and their warrants and explained warrants to people. And at that point, boom, the stock shot up. I don't know if that was a correlation. I'm not taking full credit of that. I think people actually saw sentiment changing on Aterian, and a couple people jumped on it. Smart money is my guess, because look how much volume they brought. Like if that was retail, that was not retail doing it 150 on the first day. That was smart money that trapped the shorts in, made them kind of move up. And here's the thing: shorts didn't cover. So. Yeah, I mean, this can run. So, I mean, what confuses me is that floats are locked up. People bought more than there is. Yeah, that's essentially what's happened. And here's the thing, like the U.S. equities market, this is the problem across the board. Like this is a across the board problem because of our settlement system. Because if we had to actually deliver shares that each one of these days, and there weren't enough shares, the stock would have shot through the roof. It would have been $25 a share all of a sudden. But that's not how we work. What we do is we do all these FTDs, and we do all this, 3 T plus 3, T plus 2, T plus 30, like 35, like all these different settlement dates. And so they have every chance to kind of manipulate and kick around the can. And it's all based off stuff that was like back when you had to like collect like horseback riding like ballots and stuff and bring them to New York and like buy and sell shares and then send it back off. Like literally that's what they were doing before. Now we have blockchain technology. We could instantaneously settle every single trade as it happens, but they're not embracing that technology because then they can't manipulate the stock market as much. There's no incentive for them to change this because they are able to make so much money off this. So, the last time I hit good out of the money was GME. It burns me. Yeah. I mean, when you hit, they're great, but they don't always work out, and that's why I've changed my strategy to more in the money because at least I can turn them into shares. So, if Ethereum doesn't make a significant move, then EO goes into effect. We won't see a squeeze for months until. No, so here's the thing. So if you believe in the executive order, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I read the thing wrong and I'm interpreting incorrectly. And every single meme stock squeezes on that date. And it'll be like January 27th, 28th again, right? Maybe that happens. Aterian will be in that category because the people that are shorting them have likely shorted other companies too. And so if they're getting margin called and they're getting liquidated, then every single one of these stocks would run. Anyone that their ticker looks exactly like ours is going to run at some point. So, yeah, and so here's the thing. Like, Tyrion right now is not the same name brand as GameStop, AMC, even Bed Bath & Beyond. But at the same time, you have to realize that this was a stock when I first joined in on the run, which was last year. When I bought in, it was somewhere around here, and I'm telling you right now, I'd never heard of this company. I had to look them up. I thought the name was kind of cool. Looked at the float, saw it was a tiny float. That was, one of the things that drew it into me. And then I looked at, if I remember correctly, where is... Yeah, we can go into XRT if you want, but really, they're an ETF, which makes it even more complicated because then you're taking apart, like, literally, like, you dissect down and you can strip out certain stocks, and there's all sorts of, like, loopholes with ETFs because they actually can create their own shares. And, but, like, for example, XRT in the ETF, I believe, has, like, 500 or 600% short interest right now. So... blockchain needs development before it solves a problem. The chain would bloat so fast. The chain would need... So, yeah, but I mean, I think the technology is there if they actually try to embrace it. Like, so far what I've seen is nobody's actually trying to fix the problem. Like, we have the technology. Now it's a matter of actually trying, or even get it to T+1 or T+, like T+0 may not be, feasible right now, but you could get it to T+1 or 2 at least for everything. Like, that shouldn't be that bad. But yeah, we don't need to worry about, the executive order. We're not only reliant on PR news. They're like, once again, like, this stock ran up, right here on absolutely no news right now. Like, this run right here happened on absolutely no news. So from 2 to 7, there was nothing. They added a board member. That's not the reason why the stock ran up. So, all right. So, let's see what else is going on. So it looks like Fish sent me over some screenshots of Bloomberg. Let's pull them up real quick and take a look. All right, can we see that? All right, so let's see. Call volume coming in. There's about 15K shares today. That makes total options about 20,000 contracts. Open interest right now on calls is 107,000 contracts versus only 28 puts. 28, but I did hear some people saying that they were selling $3 and $2.50 puts, which will generate some cash for them, and those are actually bullish. So if anyone doesn't know, selling a put is actually bullish. If you didn't we follow GME and AMC when they pumped in March, though? I think it was like February or March, if I remember correctly. But we actually had the secondary squeeze in... I'm going to brain fart. We had the secondary squeeze back in, I think it was June, August. So this happened at August. Yeah, so like... This part right here was August. So Aterian's run happened, or at least the second run happened here. The first run, I don't know if I count this because when we moved up here, yeah, it was December, and then it kind of, this was the kind of like the secondary pump right here into like February. So it would happen on such low volume. So I don't think I correlate exactly this with GameStop and stuff like that. Why do I think it's a matter of time? So let's break down this again, just so you guys can see this. Here are the numbers, right? And I just want to show you guys how much power retail actually has. And they don't want you to know this. Nobody wants you to understand that. So let's take 20,000 retail investors. I'm just showing you hypotheticals. I'm not saying anyone should do any of this stuff. I shouldn't have done that. Hold on. Escape. I did something. Hold on. Let's try that. I don't know what I did, but I messed it up. So if we had 20,000 retail investors, right? And so let's hypothetically say that we have this as our free float right now, just because that's the numbers we're using. So if you take, let's do equals. I should leave this. I have to take out the words. This divided by, is it this? Hold on. It's because I have this word in here. I don't think that's right. Hold on. I did something wrong. Equals. No, it's not the right equation. So I need to take this number divided by this number. Okay. So just to show you guys how much power retail really has. So to lock up this entire float. Now, once again, you're assuming that nobody owns any shares. So this would be all if people didn't already own millions of shares from retail, right? But it would only take, I don't like these. $1,200 shares for each retail investor. And let's just do this. So if you take that number times this times, right now, what are we at? Like 313 or something like that? 314. So for less than 4,000, now this is 20,000 people across the entire world, right? There are already 14,000 people just in the Reddit, right? There's also like 30,000 in StockTwits. There's also multiple people that aren't part of Reddit or another thing, but they've bought Aterian throughout, reading articles, whatever the story is, right? So I think this number is low. I think 20,000 retail investors across the entire world seems very low. But you would have to spend less than $4,000 to lock up the entire float with just 20,000 investors. My guess would be we're probably somewhere more like the 50s to 60s, and I think that's a little more realistic. But let's do these numbers, right? So if you take this number divided by, so take the free float divided by 40,000, you would only need, right, 632, shares to lock up the float for 40,000 retail investors. And this, you can go across this any way you want, but you take this number divided by this one. Like, you can see, like, if 60,000 retail investors invested 421 shares, less than 2,000, each, the entire float would be locked up. And you're, once again, assuming that there are no shares out there. Like, if nobody owned anything already. That would lock up the entire free float. And we already know that retail owns millions of shares. Like, So that's a big deal. Like, and the bigger this grows, the more Aterian gets their name out there and kind of sticks around. And, even if people hate it, if they start looking at it and going, oh, wait, there's something to this. Let me look a little bit deeper. And they start realizing, like, oh, my God, like, this stock is completely just going to fly someday when somebody realizes, how dangerous this is. Like, I mean, look at this. Like, it's not that expensive to lock up the entire float for retail. So that was just what I was pointing out to you. Like, why is it a matter of time? Because of this. And I showed you, like, even here, right? When the dilution happens in September, If my guess would we probably move before then, but I'm just showing you, even with this is still a small float. Like if you look at BBIG, Prague, some of these other ones, they have 250 million shares outstanding. Like Tyrion doesn't even have right now 72,000, let alone we're at 64,000 right now, or 64 million right now. Going to 72 million is not that bad. Like, you guys have to realize that, like, they're going to be fine. Like, this is like worst case scenario. I think it still moves before then, but I'm just showing you. Look at this. Even if we have like split the difference, like 50,000 investors, right, across the entire world, between stock twits, Reddit, casual investors, word of word, friends who have bought, a couple thousand shares. We're talking about, like, if every single person went out and told 3 people, the old networking game, right? You would go out and you tell, but like that's the idea behind this is it's still grassroots at this point, but like I think people are realizing that with a float this small, and you're looking at not a ton of money to lock up the entire float. I know people that have literally millions of shares. We have somebody in our Discord that has more than 1 million shares. We have, for example, also, plenty of people who have 100,000 shares, 200,000 shares. Like, these are real people, just retail investors that have locked up a ton of shares. And look at this. That's all it would take. Some of these whales already own way more than their share. Like, when I mean, like, we were looking at, if we removed another 8 million from here, roughly, I'm just throwing this out there as like a random number, but like, say for example, we know that retail owns, I don't know, let's say hypothetically like 8.6 million, right? Million shares. So that means that if we took out an additional, if we took out this number minus out 8600000. Oop, that was too many zeros apparently, right? 860. That would only leave 16 million left, right? So if you were to do this down here and say if we equaled that divided by 20,000, it would only require 800 shares versus that, right? And then if we did this portion right here, we did 11, that number times 314, and then did this down the line, right? Oh, there. Oops, I did that wrong. So we take this number and we divide it by 40,000. All right. I need to remove some of these. Let me save it fast. Here we go. Yeah, like 400 shares. Like, retail holds a lot more power than they realize. And the cheaper the stock price is, like, the worse off this gets for the shorts. And nobody wants to actually hear that, but, like, it's true. Like, the lower the price is, the more power retail holds. And they can scoff at that, but that's the truth of it. Like, we have more power when the stock price is low. I'm not saying that is like any like collusion thing. It's just, that's the honest truth. When retail can actually afford shares, that makes us more powerful. When shares are 2,000 or 3,000 a share, like Amazon, most retail can't afford those in any significant amount of numbers. So those are the big boys playing with those ones. Retail can't, retail might have bought in long ago like I did, back when they were under 1,000. But I'm telling you now, like most retailers can buy fractional shares of those, but not like real ones. So being able to buy and control these shares down here at these prices is pretty important. So, okay. So these are just some examples of like, this is probably more realistic, like these ones down here, what we're dealing with right now. Like if you were to like really kind of think about the fact that retail owns a lot of shares already, and this is probably a conservative number. No, that wasn't right. Let me go back. I thought it was going to speed up my thing, but it didn't. Yeah, I mean, it's showing you that under $1,000, if there were 60,000 people, it would lock up the entire float. So, and you need to make another DD with this updated chart and explain what power we have. Yeah, probably. Like I don't know. It's hard for me to sometimes because it's like I'm been pretty busy at work, so I haven't had the same amount of time I normally do to just kind of write DD. Like the winter was great because I work in an industry where I'm required in the field a lot, and so during the winter we don't go out in the field that often. But now that it's spring, summer again, I guess we spring now, or we sorry we're like we're in summer-ish. We're like on the border. But I'm outside now, and so I'm not able to sit behind the desk all day long. And, I'm still trying to communicate as good as I can, but, I can't always get DD kicked out like I used to. Yeah, and imagine if any institutions go long on this, and retail already owns all that. All right. So if you think we already locked up so much of the float, why do we need to bring volume to move Aterian? Well, I mean, I think I showed before. I think here, so right here, right, this was our last earnings, right? But we actually have been on 100% utilization since this day right here. So we've basically gone from here all the way to here, which is 72 straight days with 100% utilization. That means that they have had a hard time locating shares since basically we dipped under 3. And here's the thing. That's where we're sitting at now. And whenever we dip under 3, that gives retail the chance to buy at discounted rates. Now, most of the time, retail doesn't buy under 3 because retail's scared. But I think I've shown multiple times where it falls down to basically 3 and then it shoots back up. It just, every time it gets pushed down to these liquidity levels, it quickly fills up and then moves up. And then it finds other areas to fill. So, I mean, it's going to, they're going to let this go as long as they can. I mean, like, how many shares do you think GameStop owns? Like, honestly, like, how many shares do you think retail owns on GameStop? This was a stock that was sitting down here in the teens that ran up to $500 a share and then has been sitting here in the hundreds, like $200 range for like months. They pushed the stock down to 88. They can't get this stock below this point right here. Like, look across here. Like, this was like an abnormal thing when they got it down this low to the 70s, right? They got it down to like 78 or something like that, or maybe it wasn't that low, but they have like a line in the sand that they can't seem to get across with a GameStop. And I would say somewhere around this frame right here, every time they dip down that low, it just flings back up. It's happened multiple times. They can't keep the price down. Like, so how many times has retail locked up the float on that? I don't know. Like, it's been hard getting retail to, commit to DRSing their shares. But, I think they'll show the updated DRS numbers on the earnings, which is I think June 1st or 2nd or something like that for GameStop. And if they have a DRS number that's high, that wouldn't shock me. If I think what was it before? It was like 30 or 40% was locked away, maybe on the last one. But you're giving people more time to accumulate and DRS their shares, and they're a very organized community. I'm part of it, so it's not weird saying, but like they're very organized, and they have a lot of really smart people in there that really understand what's going on here. I feel like Short Squeeze doesn't typically have that kind of knowledge, and so I'm trying to do my best to kind of fill in some gaps if I can. Obviously, these are two different things, but we have a smaller float than GameStop. So, yeah, at some point it's a rubber band. You only pull a rubber band so many times before it snaps back and smacks you. It's like those like watermelon videos when they're pulling back on the watermelon, and eventually it gets to the point where it's like way too much, and then it flies up and then smacks them back in the face. Like that's essentially what happens. Then they have no choice but to force themselves to go long and then pump the stock up and then try to they ride it up and down. So. Yeah, cheap shares have less risk, but won't they be difficult to elevate the price? No, you just buy and hold, and eventually all this comes back to bite them in the butt. Like, I don't think that should be too hard to understand. Like, hypothetically, if we go off these numbers, right, we probably have the entire float locked up at least once. That'd be my guess. And yeah, there are going to be times when people sold out during this portion, so it freed up some shares. But here's the thing. For every one of those people that paper hands and leaves, there are people who come in behind them and actually, buy more and more and more and just over time. So I think I can go here and then add the dollar sign. There we go. I do want to say thanks. I really enjoy these nightly streams. All that data talk is interesting. Yeah, I told people I would keep doing this. Obviously, it takes time out of my life, but I'm hoping people learn. I'm trying to do my best to try to teach. I'm not much of a teacher, to be honest with you guys, but I am trying. We have a bunch of information in here that we keep track of, and I try to do my best to break everything down in simple ways that people can understand. And, I'll show you this. Like, these numbers don't make sense. All right, so let's cover this real quick. This is the date. This is the closing price, adjusted closing price. This is aggregate short volume. This is when they add together all the short volume from the day, and they place it in these columns, right? So since March 8th, which is when we hit utilization. This is just when I started tracking this, because I wanted to see when there were no shares available, because that's what 100% utilization typically shows, is that shares are very hard to find. So since March 8th, which was 76 days ago, there has been close to $500 million in short volume with absolutely no shares available, right? If you look at the aggregate exchange volume, right, you're close to $1 billion, right? Now, here's the thing. The total volume, though, is over $1 billion. So you have a stock that's been trading over 1 billion shares. When it's 100% utilization, there are no shares available. Short exempts, you're looking at basically 9 million short exempts that have been used. And they've been shorting this thing about 51% every single day on average. The last couple of days they haven't, but these days up here, they absolutely were, 60%, 68%. Like, they had some really skewed days of how much they were shorting. So on average, though, this stock is every single day sees more short volume than it does positive volume. So how old am I? I'm old enough to be a dad. I have 2 kids, and I'm actually, I think, on the older end for how young my kids are. I was in the Marines for a while, and then I was with a woman for about 5 or 6 years. I never, we didn't work out, to put it nicely. She was very nice. She's now like a executive at like a DoD contractor, but it didn't work out, and I ended up meeting my wife about 2 or 3 years after that. So we met each other when we were in our like mid-30s, and so we had kids pretty soon after. I think we got engaged like 2 years into it, and then we had kids like the next year. So we got married and had kids and bought a house and all that stuff. So, oh, you were talking about, yeah. So I was old enough to be in the Marines and do 2 tours during Operation Iraqi Freedom 1 and 3. So that puts a timestamp on how old I am. You're still a baby to me, Anon. I did sing growing up a little bit. I was a bass, if you couldn't tell. So, but I do love music. I actually play a couple of different instruments. Probably can't play them now. My kids are sleeping, but I do play guitar, ukulele, violin, viola, cello, bass, and pretty much all the strings. But yeah, I do love music. But I do like, but yeah, these numbers are pretty crazy. Like, to see something that has 100% utilization and to see it trade this much volume, this much shorting, like 76 days. So, yeah. But yeah, just remember, guys, like, when it all comes down to it, this shows you how much power retail has. Like, it wouldn't take a lot. Like, how many shares do you guys have? Like, think about that. Like, in this case, so let's say retail from just the Discord is equal to roughly between this and maybe 10 million, hypothetically, right? So, how many shares do people in YouTube have? Do you have at least 800 shares? If we have 40,000 people, do you have at least 400 shares? I know I have a lot more than that, and so do a lot of people. I can list out multiple people that have over 100,000 shares by themselves. So, yeah, let's see. Neil's got over 2K. Jason's got 1.3K. Like, I think, I don't know if he's still on here. Where is... you and your roommate have, like, a bunch of shares. I'm trying to remember your name offhand. I'm sorry. I'll have to go back and try to see if I can find him. Because I think he only commented one thing, and then, yeah, I don't see him in here anymore. Or at least he hasn't written at least in a while. But, yeah, look at these numbers coming in. 2K, 1.3K, right? 24K, 3K, 4K, 2.6K. Also says a lot more. John's going to throw out at least 1,000. 14K, 7 or 7K? Oh, 7K, okay. Yeah, 1.2K, 2K, 1.3K. Yeah. And you don't have to comment how many you have, but look how many people have a couple hundred to at least a couple thousand shares just in here. Like, look at this. We said if 40,000 people had 400 shares, they would have locked up the float. And this is all they'd have to spend right now. If you don't have that right now, that's all you'd have to spend. It's like $1,300 right now at this price point. That's crazy. So, I mean, I'm just showing you guys the reason why I say it's a matter of time. Yeah, look at some of these numbers coming in now. Like, let's see. Here's some more coming in, right? Okay, so 2K, another 2K, 6K, 1K, 100K, 700, 500, 3,000, 800, 1.8, 65,000, 63,000, 24,000, 65,000, 73,000, 2.8. How many of you guys think, like, seriously, who do you think owns this float? Why do you think these indicators look like this? And this is my whole point to you guys, is you guys are sitting here doom and gloom, and I'm telling you, this doesn't make sense. This does not make sense. For the stock price going down here, and people kept being, oh my God, Anon, why do you keep saying the price doesn't matter? Because the price is a lie, because that's the honest truth of this. They can control the price through numerous different ways. Look at this. This doesn't lie. You guys own the float. We're early, but we're not wrong. We're like Dr. Burry. Like, and the longer it stays down here at these levels, this is a dangerous, dangerous level. Because think about this. Like, I'm able to add probably about $1,000 every, like, week or two to buy. And if the stock price is sub 3, I'll buy those up every single week going forward until I own, more shares than some of the executives. Because I understand how this works. I get it. They can't do this forever. They can't. You guys look at this. The 100% utilization means that they're having trouble. Why do you guys think, listen, go to Reddit, read, look at all the people crying about, oh my God, Aterian, blah, blah, blah. You guys that are listening to this understand something that they don't, which is, yeah, the price may have gone down, but your brokers are begging you. They are literally going out of their way to write you, letting you know that you can lend out your shares and make money, and we're happy to help you facilitate this. Do you know how often I've ever seen that? The only times I've seen that are on GameStop, AMC, anything that they are having a whole lot of trouble locating and then trying to get shares out. That's the truth. Seeing you guys holding so much strengthens my conviction. Yeah, like, look, I'm telling you guys, and this is something that hopefully, maybe people see down the line, and maybe this gets out there, but, like, you guys own so many shares. And yet, all that's happening is everyone keeps watching this, which is the price. Hell, bring it to $1. I don't care. I'll scoop up everything I can. My house just settled. I'm still getting the money right now from my brother, but, like, I'm buying in chunks right now. I bought at the end of the day today when money came through. Like, they can kick the can all they want on this, but honestly, I have the patience for this. I've been in this stock for a long time. I'll keep buying it. You give me sub $3 price levels, sure, I'll buy it all day long. Because every time it goes down, it goes right back up. This stock is becoming a problem for them. And they don't, some people are smart enough to see it, other people aren't. People with no patience, they're not going to do well with this stock. If you're patient, though, this stock will pay you. That's my opinion. That's what I think. That's not financial advice. I just believe that something's wrong with this stock, and it's being shown on so many levels that the price does not reflect what the actual is, what's actually going on with this stock. So, Yeah, it depends on your time frame, Jonathan. So obviously, like if you're looking at it on a yearly versus a monthly versus a 1 hour, your time frame is definitely you can see money flows going in, going out. If somebody's selling at that time and then people buy back in, or like say for example, like a institution sold out during a day or two, right? So maybe it takes 1 or 2 days for them to sell out their position, right? Trying to get the best price for it. And then retail, though, the next couple of days buys back in after the price dropped. Over a course of a year, you're not going to see that a huge amount, right? But I always put them on the same line because that's how I like to view it, because it kind of gives you a perspective, right? Because these two things do not look exactly the same. And so if you have the money flow indicator, they should be a little more aligned, at least with the OBV. But once again, it all depends on your how you set it up. Yeah, they control the price until the day they can't, and then when that happens, you're gonna see stocks flying. So, cool, Archer. What do you think about the possible effect of the executive order? So I've said it a couple times tonight, but to me, I didn't read it that same way that everyone else is interpreting it. I don't think anything happens of it, but I hope that I'm wrong. I really do. I hope I'm wrong, and every single meme stock flies. But in my opinion, I when I read it, I didn't see anything. I would like them to change the language if they're going to go ahead and pass it and enforce it, because as it's written right now, I didn't see anything that specifically said that they couldn't. They just couldn't use anything new. They didn't have to actually close any positions or anything specifically that. So that was just it. All right. So what time is it? All right, is everyone good? Does everyone want to go back to the Bloomberg? Let's take a look. So this is all just options flow. It looks like this week's 350s have gone up. There's been a good amount of buying there. It looks like the volume for the August $5 has gone up. I mean, all of them have gone up. It's just a matter of the largest ones. A good amount of this week's $3 were bought. Looks like there were some... I don't know. I guess those are puts, but I can't tell if they're bullish or bearish. I guess we'd have to get something for that, like a sweep. Let me see if I can get the other image real quick. All right. Is there a difference between these two, or is this the same one? All right. I'm reading some of your comments. Pretty funny. All right. So, Anon, you've got a great voice. Have you ever thought about being a DJ for like easy listening or jazz? It's actually funny. I have been told that I should, go work at a radio station. Be like, that was just Kenny G. This is 105.7, The Breeze. All right. So, yeah, price is not relevant. Agreed. These questions are really hard to answer because they're so broad. Dave. So Dave has asked, when will Tyrion hit $20 plus again? I mean, that's really, really hard to answer because obviously I don't have a crystal ball. I don't know. I do know that this run right here came on a large amount of volume and a bunch of FTDs. And I think that's starting to build up again. And I do think that at some point you're going to see another rip up, and we could see levels like that again. But yeah, it's hard to, those Bloomberg numbers are from the 18th. Okay. Yeah, those are old then. Well, no, it says as of today, right? Or is that? I don't know. Fish sent me that. Fish, what's going on with that? Is that the newest ones that you sent me tonight, or am I just looking at that? Yeah, wrong. I'm starting to get tired. How about everyone? Everyone good? Everyone got any last minute questions or? Yeah, I'd love to give you a straight answer on that, but I just can't because it's hard. It's hard enough to kind of figure out. Let me just see this real quick. I didn't do that. Yeah, like if I had a guess, my guess would be sometime in August would be, and that's, gun to my head. The biggest possible catalysts I see are if we do have the executive order and that does somehow, work out, you could see a run then. And that would have been probably at the beginning of, June, July, something like that. Is that right? And then August we should have earnings, and that would also coincide with if there was an earnings beat, you might have a catalyst to send the stock. But they run a risk if they keep the stock right down here in this level for that long. I mean, that's dangerous because there's a lot of retailers that have gone, but maybe coming back or around again. You also have a good amount of people who are just in it and have been in it for a long time that if you give them this price this long, they're going to scoop up those shares. And so, all of a sudden you can see some of these people that you guys had shown, like you guys own 65,000 or, like those people will be up at 100,000 in a couple months if that happens. And that would coincide right with like August, September or so. I mean, it could happen next week. I don't know. It could happen this week. You never know with these squeeze stocks. It just, if somebody gets margin called, it can come out of nowhere. So that's why you don't want to really be playing around too much with it. Like, but once again, these are all just, hypothetical things. And, I'm trying my best to just kind of answer questions you guys have and then do anything like, I'm not going to give you perfect answers on some of these questions you guys ask, but at the same time, if I can do my best and try to inform people where I can, and then, I invite everyone. Like, if you guys want to join the Discord, if you're not already part of the Discord, we have a Discord that is free for everyone. You go ahead and copy it here. Yeah, if you mess with people's dates, like, if you mess with saying yes, things are going to happen on this date, and then obviously they don't happen, then people go, well, I guess it's over. June 3rd is when the executive order is. And guess what? June 3rd may come and go. And guess what? Because I'm not assuming, if I'm not actually expecting anything on that date, then I'm not going to be disappointed. So June 3rd's right here. Right? June 3rd's right here. So if that date comes and goes and nothing happens, guess what? I'll just look for the next thing because the numbers are on our side. If you realize how much shares that you guys have and how much power you guys have down at these levels, if they drop that stock into the twos, whew, you're going to see a lot of people who all of a sudden get a lot more shares. So, do they have a conference in June, or is that? I think that's GME that has June 1st, 2nd, and 3rd, right? But maybe Aterian does too. I don't know. I have to take a look. I didn't look at Aterian's calendar, but I do know they have a couple things coming up this summer. But they've said that they're also willing to like look at other opportunities that will be different revenue streams. Like they have some possible things that they could pull out of a hat later on. So we'll see. They don't bring up news though unless there's actually something to say, and that's something you'll find out with Aterian. Is if you look across their PR, they only put out stuff when things are actually happening. They don't just like talk at their side of their head just to talk. So. I mean, this could be like GameStop or AMC. Every day is MOAS until it's not. You never know. So, but yeah. So if you want to join us in the Discord, we do have a lot of good talks. We have people in there that are like from the industry that some guys were talking to Invictus last night, and they were learning, because he works not directly on Wall Street, but like for he's a financial professional, so he actually has a good amount of contacts and understands kind of how all this stuff fits together. And it's something that I think the more people that we get in there, the better shots you have at I learn things in there, and I constantly am trying to grow. And one of the reasons I didn't want to do YouTube in the beginning was just because honestly I was like, I don't know everything. I don't feel like I should be the one talking on YouTube about all this stuff. But eventually people from the Discord just told me that, like, someone needs to kind of talk about and represent Aterian. So I was like, fine. So, all right. Yeah, so it's already way undervalued. If it goes to twos, I'll triple my position again. I've been holding since last year in the first run. Yeah, and you'll get a chance to average down again, and that's kind of what I'm hoping is going to be the case too. Because when it was down here, I was I just didn't have enough cash, so then I ran up to here, and I was like, I should have sold a bunch of Amazon and a bunch of other things and bought more. I already did that a couple times, but I was trying not to I was trying to stay disciplined because I didn't want to have. I already crossed my threshold on how much I should have put into this one. Because Ethereum's like obviously compared to an Amazon or Tesla or Tesla's still a little bit risky, but like at Amazon, I also have like Coca-Cola and like some of these blue chips that are like very safe and very reliable. Like normally I don't have a huge position into something like this, but I do whenever I find a growth stock that I think that something can happen in long term, I try to get in and, do my research. And this was one of the stocks. I wasn't expecting this to turn into a full out like meme war, like fight the hedge. Like this wasn't what I was looking for when I came into Aterian. I thought like, okay, I see some short interest. Product looks interesting, And then I got just completely involved in writing the DD and looking at this thing and going, something's not right here. And then once I kind of realized how messed up this like small cap was, I was like, it's like hard to like turn my back at that point because I was like, oh, they're getting like death spiral financed. Like there's all these things that you start realizing about how shady Wall Street is. And like once they got shorted under like book value, I was like, okay, that's pretty aggressive. And then they got shorted under current assets around here. I think it was here, right? This one, was it this one? 245. Yep. 245 was their current asset value. And they got shorted and bounced off that. And I thought, okay, they bounced off their current assets. That's what the shorts are aiming for. And then this week, this is obviously not this week, but that particular next couple of days, once they hit this and they went back down, that's when I got shocked because I was like, you are now shorting it below current asset values. And then they got down to the 210, and I was like, I mean, liquidation prices, you would make more just liquidating the entire company than that. So, yeah, that's how I got involved, and it got even worse. And I do need a calendar. And if my PC is working tonight, I'll start video editing for you. Cool. Awesome, Sooner. Thank you. All right. You guys are awesome. Thanks for being here. One last time, I'll link the Discord if you haven't joined it. It's free. Just, doesn't cost you anything to go in there and poke around. But a lot of cool people in there. A lot of people are making friends on there. So there we go. On my way to the gym. A lot of pre-workout in my blood. Don't worry. Yeah, you're good. Get that NO2. Like and subscribe. Thanks, Vlad. Appreciate that. Yeah, I was going to say, I'll be honest with you, Dave. I think there's people smarter than me inside the Discord. Plenty of people smarter than me. I'm just kind of the figurehead at this point because I got forced to go on YouTube. So, but there's tons of really, really smart people in there. Most of us are hanging out in the Tyrion room right now, but I think that will start shifting eventually, down the line. But yeah, I don't think they're going to be able to just destroy the company, to be honest with you. There's becoming this like slow, like grassroots movement on Aterian where it's like, okay, like you guys want to keep pushing down the price, we'll keep buying the shares. And at that point, you guys are going to be dealing with FTDs, and you're going to be, I'm fine playing this game. And honestly, what will eventually happen is once it goes and runs up here sometime, they can pull those warrants out at 25, and they raise a bunch of cash on that. Even if they did like an ATM at some point, these shares might be worth like $12-15 anyway, just based off like long position because of the amount of cash they can raise off an ATM. So like you're looking at a very interesting prospect here. Like this stock, if it ran to like up here and they were able to do an ATM and raise like even like couple like a couple $100 million in cash, they could acquire more things, kind of like GameStop, and like they don't have a ton of debt right now. They basically use that private placement to pay off their debt. So like they're in a pretty good spot. So but I do need a calendar too. So if we should make a calendar for all the events on the Discord. Yeah. And, I do have a Patreon as well, and nobody's required to actually donate to that. I just put it out there because the eventual goal is to make me a streamer full-time so I can just hang out with you guys during the day and trade stocks. But nobody's required. It's donations only, and if you don't feel like donating, then don't. It's fine. I just throw it out there every time because, I told my wife, I was like... if I was able to pull this off, would you let me do this? And she was like, yeah, if you don't lose any money on this, then I would be fine with that. So I'm like, all right, cool. So, yeah, but it's a good group of people that we have in here. And, like, this isn't even the full amount. Like, we've got, like, 3,000 people in the Discord. So, there is the Patreon if anyone wants to join that. Even, small pledges are fine. And the goal is eventually, if I can, do this full time during the day instead of my current job. I mean, I'd rather hang out with you guys and talk about stocks all day long than go to the job and be out in the field when it's 100 degrees. But yeah, in the meantime, I'll continue doing this other thing and fix the payment system. What's wrong with the payment system, Cam? I don't know much about... I'll be honest with you, I don't even know what's going on with the Patreon. I don't really know. Let's see. Payment system. Okay, so tell me what's wrong with it, because I don't know much about this thing. I set it up one time, and then... I haven't touched it since then. It's not accepting visas. I'm Canadian. Really? That's weird. How does that work? Send crypto. I think I have a wallet somewhere. I don't really know, though. All right. Yeah, so I'll go ahead and let's see. It's asking for a zip code, and we're all letters and numbers. Oh, they should probably fix that. I've never. I guess I could contact them maybe. Let me see if I go to settings and say I need help with something. But yeah, they do take a lot of the money out. That's what I noticed. Like, I think over 10%. Not only that, but then you also, when you pay out, you actually have to pay things on top of that. But it's fine. It is what it is. Do I have the ability to contact them and ask them? Questions. I'll go ahead and write that as a thing to do tomorrow, Cam, and then I'll try to figure out what's going on with that. But you guys have a wonderful evening, and I'll see you guys tomorrow pre-market. Everyone stay safe and have a great night's sleep. All right. Good night.